Welcome to 10, the Tenant Experience Network. I'm your host, David Abrams. In this episode, we are connecting with Kendall Pretzer, CEO at Grace Hill. In this episode, we learn about Kendall's career journey, moving to Dallas after graduating from college and taking a position as a financial analyst in commercial real estate, moving on to various operational roles, and finally making her way to the multifamily sector. She eventually started her own company, providing policy procedure manuals for the CRE industry, which was acquired in 2018 by the software company that she now leads, Grace Hill. Kendall uses her experience as a customer to help run Grace Hill today. I loved hearing about how her dad helped to set the stage for the kind of leader she wanted to be, and how a previous mentor taught her the value of making you feel smart. Their approach was to question you into the right answer. Kendall believes that hybrid work may well be the new normal, and companies have to be flexible and creative to help make it successful. Kendall reminds us that people are people, and there is a need for some in-person collaboration and casual conversation. She also noted that building occupants are more sensitive to the environment and ESG and are demanding more attention to be paid to this area of the business. Kendall shared how her company was able to support its clients through the pandemic by providing content that will help owners and operators to make better decisions. At Grace Hill, Kendall has made it a priority to recognize the efforts of her team members that have made a positive impact on the community. We're excited to share this podcast with you, so be sure to subscribe to 10 so you never miss an episode of the Tenant Experience Network. And now I'd like to welcome Kendall to the show. I'm really glad you could be with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
It is my pleasure. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So I wanted to start, if you could just maybe share with us your journey to your current position role. How did you get started?
So I have a little bit of a meandering point to get here, as most people do in real estate, honestly. So I'm currently the CEO at Grace Hill. And after graduating college, I moved to Dallas and took a financial analyst role with a commercial real estate company out of California. Okay. So I started analyzing how much we spent on paint and all those sorts of things, and then moved into some operations roles. And then my boss at that time moved over into the multifamily side of real estate, and he hired me over there. And so then I worked there in the multifamily side for a bit, and then with several companies in several different positions, corporate and property, the management side. And then 2000 started my own company, circled around policy procedure manuals, content for the real estate industry. And then in 2018, Grace Hill bought that company. Okay. So I joined Grace Hill at that time and took over all the customer facing roles within Grace Hill except sales. And then through another investment of ours in 2021, was appointed CEO at that time. So there's my journey.
Well, congratulations. And more often than not, it is a meandering journey that I hear, and often some very interesting twists and turns, and how people ultimately end up in commercial real estate. So I'm just curious, before we move on, you were in the industry, but decided to go out on your own. Mm-hmm. And what was the impetus to sort of creating your own company, and ultimately what you did within that company?
Yeah, it's a dilemma that parents, have to struggle with in jobs and parenting and that sort of thing. And so I had always thought I would go on my own at some point, okay, and felt like kind of 2000, all the stars aligned. So we had a family business where my father was running it and was ill and needed some help. And I had just had my second baby. And so kind of felt like it was a good time, both professionally and personally, because, I felt like I finally had enough street cred that right, I could really do that. And, and then also just from a family perspective, needed to sort of drop into our family business and kind of help my dad. And then, I had a new baby. So wow, it all kind of aligned. And it was interesting, I got through that process, had started a consulting company, and one of my customers called and said, "Hey, I know you have written policy procedure manuals in your past. I'm starting a new company and I need this. Can you help me? And I've got a bid for, X amount of dollars. If you can do it less than that, you can have it." And so I really give him credit for giving me the push, because as a skill I knew I had, he was giving me the price. And so I walked in and I said, here's what I'm thinking. Let's do this a little bit differently than we've done in the real estate, world in the past. And so we started with a kind of 1-page policy idea. And, because I was like, people, the world's changing. People don't want to read pages of policy manuals anymore. It's really about, brief information and short content. And then shortly thereafter, we went online. And so we put everything online, I remember sitting at a trade show explaining to somebody what online meant and why you would want it online as opposed to a Word document. Right. And so I'm dating myself a bit, but, it wasn't that long ago. And so, that was really kind of our evolution of taking it to a different place than just sort of this, 3-inch binder that had all this reasons, but people don't consume information like that, and they certainly can't retain it.
Right. Interesting. So given that additional information, now I'm just curious, why do you think you were so uniquely suited for this opportunity in terms of becoming an entrepreneur and building out the unique approach, and then ultimately being acquired and now leading Grace Hill? What has helped you to be successful? Either skills, mentors, colleagues, books. What do you attribute your success to?
I would say, first of all, I think I'm uniquely suited to be in this role because I have been a customer. I have lived in this space. I understand what the basic pains and challenges are. So I think that gives me some opportunity to think about things or to kind of say, no, that's not really how customers think about it, or this is a pain and nobody's solving it. Let's go figure it out. I think that, that just experience has helped me, running a software company today, which is what basically we do, a software and services. I didn't grow up in software. I grew up in real estate. Right. And so, now it's applying some of these technology, and services to the problems, which I love, and super, super fun to do that every day. I would say, my dad was a Montgomery Ward's store manager for a long time. And I remember, when they used not to be open on Sunday, we'd get to run in the store and eat popcorn out of the machine and, some things like that. But I remember walking around when my dad, and that was sort of when the big box stores, all existed. And, I remember, and I was a kid, but I remember walking around and hearing people talk to us about how much they loved working for my dad and what a great leader he was and how, he really championed them. And I think somewhere in there, that really influenced me. And, about if you can really get, on the side of your people and really help them connect what they're doing every day to the job that you need them to do, or that the business needs them to do, that they will really be loyal and follow you and appreciate that. So I think that was a big influence. And then I would say I used to work for a man in real estate, and he had the unique ability to always making you feel smart. And so you go to him with an idea, or you'd say, oh, here's how I'm going to handle that. And rather than saying, no, that's not a good idea, or that sort of thing, he would question you into the right answer. Right. So he would ask you all these, well, have you considered this? How are you going to handle that? And so you had to really solve the problem with him, but through that process, you always felt like you were solving it. You were creating it with him, as opposed to him saying, no, that doesn't make any sense. Let's do it this way. He questioned you into that. And I've reflected on that quite a bit, about how that gave me so much confidence in my ability to solve a problem, right, and talk through it. So, and then I would say for the books, I've read a bunch, but I'd say I always have some nonfiction book going. I just now literally started The Advantage. So don't ask me about it. I haven't gotten not far enough into it, but just started that. That was I sit on a board in the real estate world, and the CEO of that board suggested it. So I think it's about company culture and things like that. So haven't started too much into it, but that's my next.
Those are great examples and great stories. I loved hearing about your dad, and then also hearing about the gentleman that you worked for and sort of how he was able to, help you to discover what you perhaps already knew. And I think that's a great skill if you can bring that forward or play that forward. What a wonderful thing to be able to do with other young people, particularly.
He used to have a rule that you could not leave him a voicemail longer than a minute. And if you left it longer than a minute, he said, I'm not even listening to it. So it's funny. It also made you be succinct in what you wanted to say. So that I thought about that. I've told a couple of people that in the past.
Right.
So,
we also share in common. I also did not come from a technology software background, and am now running and building a software technology company. So I can relate with you about, just what a different world that is, a different business that is. But I think you'll probably agree, probably one of the most exciting things I've ever done. I would imagine the same is true for you.
Yeah, it's just really good to marry the two things that are needed. You need to understand the pains of your customers, and you need to understand the technology and services that can help solve that. So it's really a fun, intersection place to be, for sure.
I'm really excited about the perspective you're going to bring to some of our discussion points in and around the return to workplace. And you come at it from a very different angle, although embedded in commercial real estate. Again, bringing I hope a very unique perspective for our listeners. There've been so many, there's so much commentary still today being expressed about the return to work and the role of buildings in the workplace. Some of that commentary is quite confrontational, often polarizing. We really believe that now is the time to simply live in the world as it is right now. And that the commercial real estate industry and employers, can't continue projecting to a date in the future when we will return to what was normal, that, it is likely that this is the new normal, and it's not a normal without COVID, it's a normal with COVID. So I'm just curious from, not only just your experience in commercial real estate, but also from the perspective of the work that you do at Grace Hill, what do you think that means for the commercial real estate industry? How can buildings continue to be important to businesses and people today?
It's a great question. And I've heard your podcast, and your guests talk about this. And I think it is, obviously an interesting point. I think you're right. I think you're exactly right. I think this is the new normal. I heard recently at BOMA, they were projecting that, 70 something percent of, companies are going to get back into the space. And I thought at the time, oh, that feels high but maybe, but that feels high. I think that this is the new normal. I think this hybrid workplace is at least the new normal for the next bit of time that we can see. I think employees are expecting it, and they are making job decisions based on it.
Right.
And therefore, it's a different world that people can say, no, you have to show up every day, because there are employees and, people out there that are saying, well, then I'm out, then I can't work for your company. So I think companies have to be flexible or creative about how they can make this work. I'm seeing it in property management, even where, you used to always say, oh no, the on-site people, have to be on site. And, leasing has been done that way for a long time, where it's a broker and they don't have to be on site. But, you're even seeing it, now with the operations, folks, and they're even saying, I don't necessarily have to be there. Maybe not, you have to be there at some point and sometimes, but not all the time. So I think we really, as a, real estate world, have to really think creatively about that, because I agree with you. I think this is the new normal.
So if we're certainly seeing hybrid take root in the people that work in these workspaces, your comment is that you're also seeing it on the operations side now. So what has that meant for your company that is very focused on building performance? Has that changed the kinds of programs or services that you're providing, given that, the way in which building operators now deliver that service is continuing to change?
It's, we have actually been remote for a really long time. So we do have a brick and mortar office, and the people that used to come in there every day post COVID are now irritated that they have to come in at all. And so we have moved them to a hybrid schedule where the rest of our teams are remote. So we have worked in that environment for quite some time. I think the interesting thing, what we're seeing, like, one of the services we offer is surveying, our owners and the owners and customers that work with us, use us as a service in surveying, tenants and owners about building usage and what the tenants really want and residents want and that sort of thing. And the interesting thing is that, 32% of, what we're seeing, 32% of the office tenants report that they are giving their employees the ability to attend optionally in person.
Right.
And then, 36% say they've got, they have mandatory partial, so you've got some people that are mandating it, some people that are saying it's optional. And that, but it's interesting, almost 60% of the building owners and operators believe that office has a positive impact on the ability to hire and retain employees.
Right.
So it's a little bit of this, mutually exclusive things that, they're saying my office is helping me attract, but I'm not making them come in. So I think that's part of what we're doing, is supplying information so that these building owners and operators can make that decision for themselves and about that building, because that's really going to, impact it.
I think the data can be confusing. And I think that's another reason why we do this podcast, is just to talk to people in the industry in real time to understand what is happening today. Like, what is your experience today? Because, things are changing so fast. We had a young person apply for a position within our company. And sadly, we were not able to win the day they wanted. We currently are remote. We hope to come back with some physical presence in the not too distant future, but she wanted to be present in a physical space, from the get-go, and not even on a hybrid basis. She was really looking to be part of a community, connect with peers, to be mentored in person, to build relationships, to go out for drinks after work. And I think that there's such diversity within the workplace. I think if we're smart, we will also take a deep breath and realize that it's not one or the other. There isn't one solution. What's right is for one person is not necessarily right for the other person. The same within a company, the same within departments within companies. And I think you spoke about it. I think flexibility and giving people ownership to some of the decision making is probably the smartest thing that we could be doing.
Right. And that's really challenging right now, because it's, what do you measure? Do you measure results? Do you measure actions? Do you measure, what do you measure of the employee exactly for all this? And so I think that's the other thing that our technology is kind of trying to catch up to, is what exactly do you measure? Because we've never had to do that before. We could see them, we could see if they were working, we could see if they were shopping, we could see that or whatever. And now it's a little bit of like, well, I don't exactly know what's happening every day. Or do I have some of that technology that, if they don't move their mouse for 15 minutes, then I'm concerned, or a certain number of clicks. I mean, it really goes the gamut of what, we're seeing. And I think, to your point, flexibility is really going to become. And it's funny you said that. We had, in the same week, we had an employee that or a prospect that we ended up not hiring. They said, I want to be remote. I want to be 100% remote. And I'm not even coming to any meetings. Right. So we were like, well, we can't do that. And then we had another employee that quit because they were remote. We tried to do some in-person things too as well, but they were like, I want to be 100% in person. And I was like, this is such an interesting thing in the same week.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a great example, a real life example of just how diverse the way in which people are thinking. And somehow, we all have to figure out a way to move forward.
Right.
We've really, I think we can all agree that from in terms of an industry, the commercial real estate industry, that the pandemic certainly recalibrated the market or accelerated the recalibration of the market. I think this trend was already emerging, but I think we can really recognize that ultimately buildings are places for people, that the real asset is the people, not the building. And it is what goes on within those walls that really generates, tremendous value. So as a result, we are seeing the tenant experience, workplace engagement are fast becoming the new differentiators and helping to drive real estate decisions, perhaps more so than those historical determinants such as location and class. So just wondering, from your perspective, from the work that you do, from what you're seeing in the industry, how do you think we're going to go about continuously creating and defining the best customer experience. What does that mean at a property level? How do we ensure that we are, that every building has an equal chance of competing to retain their tenants and attract new ones in this new world?
Right. I think the overall arching concept we have to remember is that people are people. And there is a need for some collaboration, and there is a need for some of this casual conversation and casual collaboration that does happen when you see each other. And I think, to your point, driving it down to the buildings. So what services does the building offer? What amenities? What do people want? And, we, again, as I mentioned, we do surveys of tenants and buildings. And it's interesting. We had a customer that was about to put a bunch of money into the lobby, and they surveyed all the tenants, and they said, aren't you going to think this lobby's amazing? And the feedback came back and said, no, we really want better outdoor seating. We want some outdoor spaces, and we want pickleball. And so, it's interesting. So I think they did a little bit of money to the lobby, but they ended up, including this big green space because people are like, well, if I'm going to be there, then I want the ability to walk around. Right. I want the ability to be outside. I want the ability to move and use the building in a little bit different way than I've always used it. So I think that's exactly what,
and that's not surprising. I mean, pre-pandemic, we started to see commercial real estate operators recognize the value and potential of lobbies and the underutilization of lobbies, and they were reinventing them and doing some amazing things. But interesting to note that, the data, your current data says, okay, awesome, thanks, but we'd rather have outdoor space.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. Well, and I think when we all went home, we all realized it's nice to be outside, and because that was one of the few places. And so I can't take a call outside and still be productive or still breathe some fresh air. And I think that's the other interesting thing is the whole GRESB and ESG and, energy thoughts. I think that's the other thing that I think employees are going to start demanding is, what are you doing about this big footprint? Or how can you make the building already exists? So, okay, fine. But how can you make this more environmentally pleasing? Can you do solar? Can you lessen the footprint? Because if I'm going to go in, I want to feel better about it.
I just came back from New York City last week. I attended the CRETech conference there, the commercial real estate property technology sponsored by Michael Beckerman's company CRETech. Phenomenal event, over 2,000 people in attendance. And obviously a major theme and a major initiative of Michael Beckerman is all around ESG and the environment and buildings reducing their carbon footprint and so forth. And a lot of discussion amongst building operators around how the work that they're doing to be to adhere to some of these new guidelines and recognizing that tenants are now demanding it. And tenants are actually prepared to pay a premium for buildings that are taking these initiatives to heart and are making change because it aligns with their own corporate philosophies. Right. So I think you're right. I think from helping to define customer experience, I think ESG and the environment and reducing carbon footprint, these are all factors that perhaps were very, intangible pre-pandemic are now top of mind today.
Absolutely. I mean, you were in a building 20 years ago. Who even thought about how the water worked? Right. Or how I wanted the power to come off and on, but now people are asking that around everything. They don't want to buy, clothing from a company that doesn't handle the disposition of the fabric well, or the dyes or whatever. So it's kind of getting to be the same. This is really permeating all areas of our lives. And so I think it's something we have to think about.
Well, and a big opportunity for commercial real estate, given that it is and will remain the largest asset class in the world. So just imagine the incremental positive steps that it takes.
That's right.
The impact that will have on our world. So it's very exciting to hear and see the kinds of conversations that are happening.
Right. Exactly.
Let's take a short break and we will be right back.
Okay.
This episode of 10 is proudly brought to you by Hilo. Hilo is a rapid deployment workplace engagement platform for the hybrid world that enables building operators to connect to their tenants, whether they're at work, at home, or anywhere in between. We are in the midst of a seismic shift in the evolution of the workplace. Now more than ever, it's clear that the most important asset of a building is the people. Commercial real estate leaders recognize that tenants and employees want new kinds of spaces, services, and amenities to support having the flexibility to work from anywhere. Workplace engagement solutions that connect hybrid working people to buildings no matter where they are have become a major differentiator as buildings compete to retain current tenants and attract new ones. Hilo empowers building operators to meet this challenge. To learn more about Hilo and schedule a demo, visit hiloapp.com.
We are back with Kendall Pretzer, CEO at Grace Hill. Again, I'm really glad you could be with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So listen, living through a pandemic has been challenging for so many people, but it's also provided an opportunity now for many to do better, be better, and build something better. I just want to give you an opportunity to share any details about your business or some part of your business that is being reimagined to reflect the reality of where we are today.
Yeah, I think this will be one that we'll look back and tell our grandkids about, right? So, I think Grace Hill is a content and data provider. This is what we do. We do, training content, policy content. We do, mystery shoppings, all to give our customers, equip our customers with more information and then data around, what the residents and tenants are thinking about and want to. So I think when the pandemic happened, all of a sudden we realized we were in a place that our customers expected us to help them mine content.
Right.
All of a sudden things were coming from all kinds of different places, all things were, happening. And so we realized that we were in a place to distribute a lot of information in already channels that have been set up. Mm-hmm. So that was really, a unique break for us. That was, we were already doing all that, but like, wow, we were set up to do this and we can really help. And so, through the pandemic, that's really the role we took was, can we provide content to really help, owners and operators figure out what to do and know what to do and communicate information and talk to residents and tenants about this and then equip their own people. And because you had people out there that were having to go clean office spaces and clean bathrooms and clean,
right,
apartments and that sort of thing. And nobody knew exactly what that meant. And so we were really in that place. And, that was really part of our goal. So that was one, thing that we really feel like we served the market in doing. I'd say internally for Grace Hill, two things have sort of emerged as well, just as our own company. Number one, we realized that even as a remote company, I think we realized that we needed to make some more intentional effort to connect. Right. And so we've done some more in-person town halls and we've done more often all hands calls. Mm-hmm. And just to help us all connect, even though we are mostly remote and have been, but it was just a little aha moment for us in that. And then the other thing
were you remote before the pandemic?
We were. Well, a lot of our company, we have this one brick and mortar area where most of our, we have some employees in Greenville, South Carolina, which was the headquarters and we had people there. We had 60 people there before the pandemic. Now we have 30. And the rest of the, almost 200 employees are scattered throughout, wow, the country. So right, we always were mostly remote, but this really took, and I think we took some of that for not advantage, but we just didn't realize, how connected, because we saw each other at all these events. And so right, now we were like, we need to be a bit more intentional. So I think the other thing is a little bit of our focus. We've moved to creating what we call Impact Hero Awards, where we really wanted to focus on people, customers that were really helping the community. And so this year we have rolled that out and selected 3 finalists and, the winner to be announced later this week, but really they were selected because they were in turn doing something to impact their community. And so we wanted to highlight that, recognize it, because I think that was the other thing that, you realize throughout this is it's really about helping people. Right. All throughout our community. And so we wanted to, set up an award program for that, to recognize that.
That's wonderful. And I'm sure you had great engagement amongst your team to participate.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing that. Our closing speed round is an opportunity to get to know you, Kendall, a little bit better on a personal level. So a few questions to ask you.
All right.
Can you share one way in which the pandemic has changed your outlook on life?
Yeah. In addition to the pandemic, I was diagnosed with breast cancer during the pandemic.
Oh,
So
wow.
for me, yeah, it really was about health in lots of different ways. I think life throws us lots of curves, and our job
Yes.
is to deal with them as effectively as we can. Life is meant to be lived. We don't control it. We just stand in the power of it. And so that's really, for me, it's really about thinking about your health and taking care of that, because it's meant to be lived, not to be cautious. So
Right. Well, and I hope you're doing well. And just so you
I'm doing
know,
great.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm really
Thank
pleased
you.
to hear that. And we've all been touched by cancer, and
Mhm.
as have I. And
Oh.
I do my part. I ride in the Ride to Conquer Cancer every year
Mhm.
from Toronto to Niagara Falls over the course of a weekend, and raise a lot of money. And with all of,
Yeah.
in addition to all the riders, some 5,000 plus riders. This past June, we raised $17 million
Wow, that's great.
for the Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation. And so definitely a passion of mine as well.
Yeah.
And I wish you continued health.
Thank you.
What,
Appreciate it.
my pleasure. What travel destination do you miss most?
I would say London. I have not been to the UK since the pandemic, and I love London. And so just haven't really had opportunity, haven't had reason, and
Right.
so miss that. But I do have a trip planned of going to Hawaii for my 34th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
and then I'm gonna go to France for the French Open. I'm a tennis player too, so I've never been to
Oh,
the French Open, and so I'm gonna go this year.
I love it. Well, Hawaii is definitely on my vacation bucket list. Haven't
Yeah.
been there yet.
Ah, nice.
And French Open would be just an awesome experience for sure.
Oh, I'm excited. Don't
Um,
speak French. That's why maybe that's my bucket thing I need to do, is learn French, or at least to get around.
yeah, you got to get one of those apps and start doing
Yes,
some training.
exactly.
What's your favorite technology that is new to your life?
I would say some of these smart home things. I'm redoing my blinds in
Mhm.
my home, and I found this ones that you can operate from your phone,
Yes.
that they can go up and down and all kinds of things. And that's awesome, because that's just having to walk around each window and open and close things. This is like, I can do it with my phone. I'm fascinated by that. And of course, the whole Ring doorbell, and you can see exactly who's there. I'd say all
Yep.
those smart home things are,
Yep. Smart home automation. That's a hot one. And
yeah.
now, obviously, smart buildings. That's
Yeah.
a lot of that same technology is making it
Yeah,
down to the commercial space as well.
exactly.
What is your personal choice for days spent in person with your colleagues versus working from anywhere? Now, given that you seem to be a remote first company, that answer might be obvious, but I'm just curious.
Well, I'm going to be consistent. I love hybrid. I really, during COVID, I was, in a room at a desk for 7 weeks straight, I think. And finally I went to my husband. I was like, we have to get out of here, because I'm going to kill somebody, and you're
Yeah.
you're the closest one to me. So, I think I love to spend days with my colleagues, and we do that. We try to get together in person, because that's, again, where some of that casual collaboration happens. I wouldn't necessarily email or Zoom somebody, but if they're sitting there, I'm saying, oh, hey, did you know? So we try to get together at least once a month. So I do
Right.
that. And then I love to work remotely for somewhere with a great view.
Right. Makes sense.
Yes.
And we certainly
Exactly.
have lots of options. Kendall, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your experience, your perspective, your personal stories. I've enjoyed getting to know you. Look forward to continuing our conversation in the future and staying in touch.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and congratulations on your success as well. So appreciate being included here.
My pleasure. Take care now.
Thank you.
Bye. I want to thank Kendall Pretzer for joining me on this episode of 10 and for contributing to the global conversation around buildings being part of a robust ecosystem, helping to build great companies, and that they are vital in the effort to cultivate and support great people and teams. The future of the workplace will likely take many forms, and we will continue to explore what that looks like together. Subscribe to 10 for more conversations with leading CRE industry professionals and experts who all have something to say about tenant experience and the future of the workplace. We love hearing from you, so if you enjoyed this episode of 10, please share, add your rating, and review us through your preferred podcast provider. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on a future episode, please reach out to me directly at david@hiloapp.com. And until our next episode, I wish you continued success in building community where you work and live. Thank you.